Hey, welcome to Life in the Leadership Lane. I'm your host, Bruce Waller, where I get to talk to leaders that are making a difference in the workplace and in our community. What did they do to get started and what are they doing to stay there? And today I have a very special guest. We're getting to talk to Kristen Cannon. She's the Senior Director of Talent Acquisition at the Fossil Group. And I am so excited to have you on the show. Hey, Kristen.
Good morning, Bruce. Thank you for having me.
I am so excited to have you. I actually like to reflect whenever I'm having guests on the show, and I would like to reflect, like, when did I meet them, or when did they come into my path? And for you, Beth G actually had introduced us a while back, and Beth is with Partnership Employment, but you were on the Mid-Cities HR Association luncheon program, and I got to see you there. And so it's so excited to have you on the show. The one thing you said, and this has really got me energized, you said, I love what I do, all things talent acquisition. That was just energizing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And many thanks to Beth for the introduction. I think she's a terrific person, and I've so enjoyed our partnership and friendship over many years and so forth. And yes, I love all things talent acquisition. I just think it is a super great time to be in this space right now. There's just a lot of exciting work to do and good problem solving ahead. And yeah, I love it.
We're going to talk all things talent acquisition today. We're going to talk leadership. We're going to talk about alignment with value proposition and a whole lot more. But to get started, I would love for you to share just a brief highlight of your organization, Fossil, and how do you serve your customers?
Thank you. So Fossil Group is a global design, marketing, and distribution company. We're based in Richardson, Texas, and we create watches, wearables, and accessories, leather goods for some of the greatest brands in the country. So we have a portfolio of both owned and licensed brands, and we distribute our products in over 100 countries, and we do that through retail outlets and through e-commerce. And I currently serve as a Senior Director of Talent Acquisition, so I'm leading recruiting for the organization here. It's really great time to be with Fossil. A lot of exciting work ahead of us.
Yeah, I've actually, so I know Erica Puckett, who is
Yes.
with your company. She is absolutely fantastic. And then a few years ago, when Christy Linebarger was there, she actually took me through a tour of your company. And I thought, what a cool place to work.
Our building and the office space and environment is very cool. I think that's a great way to describe it. It's very open, lots of terrific collaboration areas. It feels very modern and a great place to design product and to build out digital capabilities. It's a super cool office.
Yeah, I would think that would make talent acquisition easier whenever you have candidates into the office. So that's so cool. Hey, I want to start off the show. I always like to, we always love to hear people's stories, and I would love to hear the Kristen Cannon story. Like, where did you grow up, and how in the world did you get into talent acquisition and leadership?
Yeah. I would say, so I'm not a native Texan. So I wasn't born here. I was born in San Diego when my father was in the Navy, but I consider myself a Texas girl. I've lived here many years, gone to school and worked here. I grew up in the Houston area when I was a small kid, and then moved to Plano and graduated from the University of North Texas. And when I was in school, I actually originally set out to be a lawyer. I wanted to be an attorney, but quickly discovered that all of those very heavy law books were more than what I could handle. And so I just decided to pursue business and really fell in love with marketing courses and advertising courses my junior and senior year. And so my beginnings is actually marketing and advertising. I worked for a couple of different ad agencies here in Dallas, including Tracy Locke, and I worked on the Pepsi business. And so that's how I got started was marketing and advertising. And through, some career journey and travels, I was in a little bit of a work transition, and reached out to an executive recruiter, and kind of asked if she could help me, tap into some new job opportunities. And we got to talking, and she thought I was really smart, and she specialized in marketing and advertising talent. And she ended up pitching me a job and asked me to come work for her. And so I didn't have any recruiting experience. Had never been in sales, didn't even really have that on my radar. But I really was fascinated by the work, and, getting to work with a lot of different companies across the country. So that's how I landed in talent acquisition. And so I began my career on the agency staffing side of the business, and eventually went corporate a few years ago. So I've been in talent acquisition and HR ever since.
I love that story. And by the way, I love San Diego. My brother lives in San Diego in the Alpine area, and the weather is just absolutely incredible.
It
And
is.
then my grandfather was in the Navy. That's so exciting.
Any chance I get to go and visit, we definitely venture west.
I was thinking, when so I'm on the sales and marketing side, and I started out on the operations side of the business for the first 8 years. And I was thinking about your journey and how you started out on the marketing side, and how that's probably helped you on the talent acquisition side. Would you agree with that? I mean, little do we know how much we're being shaped for that next opportunity.
Right, right. No, that's such a great point. I think it has served me well. It's been a really great foundation. You learn a lot in marketing about, how to position your product or your service, and to how to reach specific target audiences, and what types of media channels and vehicles to use. It's been really helpful when I think about talent acquisition. I'm I'm going to market to find certain candidates, and I have a story to tell, and I'm trying to connect with them, and uh, match a career opportunity. There's a lot of great things that I've learned from my old marketing and advertising days that I apply in my role now, and especially with the evolution of employment branding and creating value propositions. It's been super helpful to have that foundation and that experience.
Yeah, what a great eye by the lady who recruited you to be in recruiting, to realize you had that talent to bring over
Hmm.
to the recruiting side. I just absolutely love that. Hey, let me ask you this. One of the things that I find is common thread for, well, leaders in the leadership lane is they have mentors that have helped them through their journey. I was just curious, have you had any mentors in your career? And if you have, like, what was it about them that made them such a great mentor?
I really consider myself very, very fortunate and very grateful to have met a lot of interesting, talented people that I've either reported to, worked for, or worked alongside, where their backgrounds and their story is unique to mine. And so I feel like I have I've had lots of little experiences and relationships along the way that have all served as mentorship and guidance. And I have, even beginning with my father. I mean, he has great words of wisdom, and I pick his brain and share things with him all the time. I've reported to some really strong, talented leaders that have coached me and given me guidance, and have um, helped me be stronger in the areas that I needed to, so that I could grow, and have been candid and transparent about my blind spots and what I need to
Mhm.
work on. And so I just feel super grateful and lucky to have had those experiences, and to build upon those relationships. Um, So yeah, I think I've yeah, I've met a lot of really great people and leverage them, all the time.
Interesting. You used the word grateful, gratitude. I'm doing a presentation of the HR Southwest conference called "Great Leaders Are Grateful Leaders," and I really feel
Mhm.
like great leaders do lean into that gratitude spirit during their journey. Oh my gosh, that is so great. You know, I'm always curious too about like, okay, so you started out in marketing. Then you
Mhm.
found your love in talent acquisition, all things talent acquisition. So I always like to ask, was there a moment when you found your lane, when you found that calling that said, I love this and I'm going to take this as far as I can go. Was there a moment there or were there little moments? Tell me about that.
Reflecting back, I feel that that moment for me was really when I transitioned from the agency side of recruitment in the staffing side into corporate, and was able to come into a very large organization. This was when I worked at J.C. Penney a few years ago, and a very large organization, and navigate hierarchy and build relationships. And I think what was working for me at the time was that I'm a good listener and I'm naturally curious, and I ask questions to learn the business, to learn the work, to learn the leader that I'm serving, my internal stakeholder, and you know quickly found a moment there where I felt really good about the relationships I was building, and the experience that I had, and how I was leveraging that in a new way, and making those connections with people to help problem solve. So, understanding what's going on inside the business and taking that insight and then going outside of the company to find great talent, and matching that. So that's some, really good, problem solving there. And I I think that was the moment where I just felt like that this is for me. This is a really great space. I'm learning a lot, but I'm also adding value. I worked alongside some really great leaders that I think saw that I could do more and different. And that's when I started leading a big team. And, so I had, the opportunity to start coaching and mentoring, direct reports, and building out, some best practices within TA. And so it just really kind of set the path for me moving forward.
I love how you frame that up with about building relationships because that's really where it's all about. I've been with my organization now for 18 years, and it's because of the relationships that I have with
Mhm.
my leadership team. They're just so good. I want to ask you this one question, and I gave you a few questions that we were going to talk about. I don't know if I put this on here, but I was just thinking about this as a talent acquisition professional. You talked about building relationships inside the organization, and of course, you're going to take that out and you're going to recruit talent. Here's a question I have: is how does someone like you build trust? First of all, inside the organization, but more importantly, how do you build it outside the organization? Because a lot of times you only have a call or a short meetup with someone.
Yeah.
How do you build that trust with that person, that candidate, to give them that feeling of, hey, I want to take this further?
Yeah, no, I think that is it's a challenge for recruiters. You're going out to the market, and you're making introductions and meeting new people, and how you establish rapport really quickly and earn credibility is really key. I think for me personally, I'm a good listener, and everybody has something interesting to share. Everyone has an interesting story, and so I invest time. You just take some time to get to know people, and know what motivates them, what they're passionate about, what drives them both personally and professionally. And I think just through, taking that time, making the investment in those conversations, you can build that trust and rapport. And so then when I can say, I have this really great, interesting role for you that you should consider, and I would love to tell you about it, those doors are open and they're willing to listen in return. And I think too, recruiters have to be transparent and open about what the role is and isn't, so that this person can make a good decision. And there's lots of times I've met people where they have said, this isn't the right time for me, or this doesn't seem like the right level of role or the right scope of role for me, but I may know someone and they'll refer you. And it's just all about, investing the time, taking the time to listen to the stories, and and being open.
I love that. I actually went out, I did a presentation, and whenever I went out to a group of leaders, I asked them to comment on that trust. And I would say listening was number one.
Mhm.
Like everybody
Yeah,
said, you've got to listen. And I just love how you frame that up. It's so important. And then, but most importantly is that you said it takes time.
it
And
does.
that's what
Yes,
everybody, or not everybody, that's what many people have a hard time with, because they're ready to like feel that position, or they're ready to get on with the next. And a lot of times we've got to hit that pause button and just learn about that person and understand and listen and find out, what are their needs, and see if we can really help them.
correct. For me, in my experience in journey, it's worth the investment. I've been doing I've been recruiting in this market for a long time. I know a lot of people, but yet there's a lot of people I don't know. And so but you have to invest the time and nurture those relationships, and some come quicker and easier, and some take a little longer, and that's okay, because we're all different.
I love that. You're right. Some do come quicker, and some take a little bit longer. You just have to go with it. But you're right. It's worth it. Oh my gosh,
It's
that is
worth
so
it.
good. It's so worth it. Hey, well, let's talk leadership here in 2021. I mean, we've been through this
Mhm.
pandemic. We're still in this pandemic, but I think we're navigating our way through this. Um, if somebody asks you, Kristen, what is leadership to you? There's so many different definitions. How would you respond to that?
Leadership for me is about being visible and present, being accessible to your business, to your partners, to your team. I think leadership also for me means being a good listener, being supportive, um, showing empathy,
Mhm.
um, for the situation, for the other person's point of view and their perspective. And I think leaders have a responsibility to lean into that and to be supportive for their teams. And I think that the leaders that I know that I have worked really hard for, and the type of leader that I strive to be every day, is someone that will inspire and be accountable, and not be afraid to roll up their sleeves and dig in and do the hard work. Um, so, when I think about that, the leaders that have stood out to me are the ones that, yeah, are visible in the organization, and they invest the time and they support their team, and they do the hard work.
Yeah, so good. I love that. I love how you use the word present. It's so important today more than ever to be present. I heard someone share on a podcast, and I can't remember. I'd give them credit, but they said, right now we need presence more than a plan. I just thought that was just profound, right?
Yes,
Because people are needing that more now than ever from leaders.
they do. And I think the complexity of us working in hybrid work models and virtually and being in back-to-back Zoom calls and so forth has shifted that accessibility, that visibility. But I think it's really important. This has been a challenging year and a half for all of us. And so I think, when you make yourself available and you're present and you're listening and you're taking the time, I think that's what's really important. I think that's what's making a difference in leadership styles and how people show up.
Well, let me ask you this, as a talent acquisition leader, have you had to change your approach in the last 18 months? I'm sure you're probably on a few more virtual calls than you were before.
I feel like I have a pretty good foundation built, and I lean into some of those things that work well. But I'm always learning. I'm always shifting and changing a little bit this last year for sure, with the pandemic and working at home more than in the office. Yeah, I've had to, on these Zoom calls and so forth, um, really be more intentional and thoughtful about making connections and reaching out in this forum. It's a little bit different than when you're in the office environment and you're walking to a meeting. You bump into someone or you're grabbing a coffee and you can strike up conversation and check on someone and even solve a quick problem right in the hallway. And it's different when you're working remotely. So you have to be aware of that. And so I I probably do a lot of observing on the virtual calls, my team's body language and, are they following along? Are they engaged and so forth? So certainly I've had to make, some tweaks here and there this past year with how I lead in this hybrid model.
Yeah, this hybrid model, it's different. And for some, it's like a silver lining. I always like to ask, are there any silver linings that you've taken over the last, I don't know, year or so and take it, and now all of a sudden you're applying that and all of a sudden that's actually a positive. Any silver linings that you're applying today?
I think I just stay true to who I am. I bring my whole self to everything that I'm working on, and I really I'm not afraid to show some vulnerability
Mhm.
or share with my team or a business partner, asking some questions. I don't have all the answers, and so I think the silver lining for me is that I've not been a person that's afraid to show some vulnerability or admit that I don't know something or I may have made a mistake. I think it also helps just further strengthen those established relationships and then help build upon the newer ones and the trust when you're not afraid to show vulnerability.
I think you're right. I think you're right on there, 100%. I was actually thinking about how really being true to yourself, maybe even that's like magnified, people seeing she really is true, the good, the bad, the
Right,
challenging. She's
right.
always Kristen.
I'm
And
always Kristen.
I
Yep.
I think people like will appreciate that even more today than ever. And so yeah, I can see how that could definitely be a silver lining. You
Mhm.
know, man, you shared a lot of things on the Mid Cities Age. I really enjoyed your presentation, and I think
Thank you.
I enjoyed it so much is because we weren't just seeing slides. We were getting to see you, and you were being interviewed by Beth, and you shared some different things. And I wanted to just talk about a couple of those things today. And one of the things was around recruiting, and you were talking about the importance of aligning value proposition. I mean,
Mhm.
it just like hit me because a lot of like does everybody know what the value proposition is for the organization? And you mentioned earlier, you have to know the business and then bring it
Right.
outside to recruit that talent coming in. Talk a little bit about the importance of value proposition alignment in the organization and how your team might use that. And maybe for the listeners, maybe to give them some insight on what they might be able to do as well.
Yeah, no, great question. I think the importance of having a value proposition is really critical right now. I mean, this is a job market unlike anything that we've seen. It's highly competitive. Candidates have a lot of great opportunities to consider, and they're getting called and they're getting messaged on LinkedIn. And so there's a lot of information that's being put in front of them. And so I think now more than ever, it's really important for a company to lean into what makes them great
Mm.
and why a candidate should come work for them. And they have to be intentional and make the effort to put that value prop, that messaging out in front of talent communities and be consistent with it. It's not a one and done. It's not a box that gets checked. It's a build over time, but it's important that we give candidates a reason to believe, a reason why they should come join our company. And at Fossil right now, we're doing a lot of content creation and storytelling that we're putting in all of our candidate touch points that gives candidates a reason to pay attention, like positioning, why Fossil, why now, why today. I think candidates are interested in learning not only about the culture that this organization has, but the leaders that are there, the work that is being done. And I hear from candidates a lot about they want to know what types of projects they're going to get to work on. They want to know what they will be able to help build or own or solve, and that they'll have autonomy and flexibility to do that. And so, if that's something that is going on in your organization, you need to package that up. You need to put it in front of the talent communities, and you need to make sure that your hiring leaders and your partners are all aligned on that, so that they're not just hearing that message on a website or in a position description or from me, the recruiter. They're also hearing it from the hiring team that they'll be interviewing with. So it's there it takes a few people and teams to do this. And so you've got it. Talent acquisition really has to lead it, but they need to bring partners along in the way.
Okay, listen. There's so much gold here. If you are listening right now, get out your pen and your notebook because these three things that Kristen just shared: alignment with culture. I love that. Number one, and we're
Mhm.
all talking about that. We all want a great culture,
Mhm.
but you also
Right.
said leaders, like the visibility of leaders, and then
Mhm.
lastly, the work being done. Like they want to know, what am I going to be doing, and then being able to tell a story around all of that. And not just that, now all of a sudden, this message is being communicated within your entire team. So everybody's talking about that, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. So it's not just the recruiter sales pitch. It is authentic, it's true, it's consistent. Yeah. So it's, you come in for an interview and you met with me, you meet with a hiring leader, you meet with some cross-functional players, peers to the role, and the whole team is aligned on what this value prop is. And um, I think, if we can do that really well, we will break through, and we will definitely be able to attract and hire great talent.
I love that. Jim Rome always says that success is not something pursued, it's attracted.
Hmm.
And what you're just talking about is, we need to be more attractive as an organization. Oh man, that is so good. I have like 100 questions I could ask you around that. I think that's a great place to start whenever people are talking about and organizations are talking about how can we align our strategy for talent
Mhm.
acquisition. Start with that value proposition. I love it. Now, you also shared something that I really resonated with because I'm hearing everybody talking about this great resignation. And a friend of mine recently mentioned it's more like the great reevaluation to her.
Mhm.
Like people are just like reevaluating maybe the things you just talked about, right? Or
Right,
is this the
right.
culture I want to be in? Are these the leaders I want to be around? Is this the work I want to do? Just things like that. But you mentioned the importance of retention, even is super important as well. And the things you talked about were around, I'll just real touch on them real quick. You talked about authenticity, you talked about being transparent, collaborating with L&D, knowing the path forward. Talk a little bit about, or do you as a talent acquisition team, do you talk about retention and how what are you doing to make sure that you are helping your team with that area?
Yeah, no, great question. So I I believe that it's really important for talent acquisition to partner well with talent development and learning and development teams to help drive retention. So we're working really hard on the upfront piece of the life cycle with attraction and selection. And but once we have an offer accepted and we're bringing in a new hire into the organization, that onboarding and immersion piece is so important right now, especially in these hybrid work models. That first 90, 120 days is critical to making sure that this person is set up for success. And so the way that we can partner with talent development and our L&D team is just ensuring that we're being consistent in our talent selection process and we're leveraging, tools and resources throughout that. And those first 90, 120 days, we're asking, for feedback and understanding from that new hire how they are immersing into the culture, and do they have a onboarding buddy, do they have regular touch bases with their leader, is the role that we outlined for them at the beginning of the hiring process actually reflective of what they're getting to do today.
Mm.
And so there's a lot of great feedback and insight that we can get from the new hires that helps talent acquisition refine that storytelling. It helps us refine how we go to market and attract talent and how we select talent. So I've just had some really good experiences working with partnering with talent development leaders on the retention piece. And we're working so hard to attract and get them in the door. We have to work equally hard to make sure that that person is set up for success. They're enjoying their role, they're engaged, and they're going to stay and grow with the organization.
I think that's very fascinating. The onboarding piece, more important now than ever. I love that 30, 60, 90 days and making sure that the candidate or the employee, once they're hired, they're still in alignment with what they were, with what they thought they were
Right.
gonna, with what they thought they. I always like to ask this question though, me being in relocation, I've always wondered with different organizations, when you're onboarding talent, is relocation part of that onboarding process?
Yes. So I've seen it work a couple of different ways in my experience. So, before we even go to offer, if we're looking at a candidate who's going to need relocation assistance, I will oftentimes introduce them to my relocation partner and kind of go through high level the components of that so that they have, good understanding of the support that they will receive if they accept an offer. And then of course, as soon as they accept the offer, that's usually one of the first things that we talk about is the relocation and the timing. And I think over this last, year, 18 months, we've had that piece is a little fluid, right? As we're kind of navigating the pandemic and things of that nature. But I think, yeah, the relocation piece is really important. It's stressful to move across the country or
Yes.
move from even, 100 miles. So I think, having good conversations with the candidates up front on what that will look like and making sure that they feel supported and have the information that they need for themselves and for their family is really important.
Yeah, I just moved about 4 years ago. I just moved 5 miles down the road, and I'm in relocation. It was stressful.
Mhm.
No, it is, and I think that that's one thing I talk about a lot is that when it comes to onboarding, companies that are doing a great job, they're educating the candidate ahead of time. Hey, here's
Mhm.
what this is going to look like. We want to make sure you understand that, just like you were talking about, we want to make sure you're aligned with the culture and the leaders and the work you're doing. We want to make sure you're aligned with, hey, if we say relocation looks like this is part of it. This is the experience you're getting. So I appreciate you sharing that. I love that. Hey, let me ask you this question. Are you seeing, so before the pandemic, I remember being in our Dallas HR meetings, and the topic was always about the war on talent. It was at the top.
Mhm.
Here we are, in this, it kind of, I don't know, in the pandemic. It's not in the pandemic, but here we are
Mhm.
in 2021. Here we are talking about the war on talent once again. And I'm just curious, like, is there a war on talent? Are you seeing more candidates looking to make those jobs? Number one. And then if another question I have around, it's kind of around the same thing is, and this is for the candidates listening, does it
Mhm.
really, is it impactful if they're only have, their job gaps, or not necessarily gaps, but they're only staying at companies, 1 to 2 years? I mean, is that like back when I was leaving college? I
Right.
mean, you need to show longevity, and here today,
Right.
it seems like we're seeing less. So I guess my questions are you seeing a lot more movement?
We are, that is a really great question. And I will say, early on, or years ago, you saw more, you saw less of movement. You saw more individuals growing within an organization and staying in a role or with a company for a period of time. But I think now what we're seeing is that um, talent is candidates are willing to make a change. They're
Mm,
they're willing to seek out new and different opportunities that align with their career goals and that align with their passion.
mm,
And so we spoke a little earlier about the importance of retention. So if you're not having meaningful conversations with your employees about their development, their career aspirations, how they can grow their career within your organization. And sometimes it's not necessarily a promotion, it could be a rotational assignment or a lateral move to help just
mm.
round out their background or give them, new or unique experiences. That's important. But I think you have to have those conversations with employees. Um, and if a company can't satisfy some of those, goals and passions, then I think candidates are more willing to look outside the organization and try something new and different.
Yeah,
So
no.
I see a lot more resumes that come across my desk where an individual, was with an organization for a couple of years and has moved on to something new and different. And it's most of the time you're seeing, some career progression, or they're diversifying their skill set a little bit. And that's our job, once you're reading the details on the resume, to then have a conversation and learn about that person. um, take some time to find out what their career goals are, what motivates them, and talk through some of those changes.
That's those are some great tips right there, even for the candidates who are reflecting right now and who are
Hmm.
reevaluating, is this the place for me? And that would be, am I having the conversations with my leadership team about my
Hmm.
development? And, are there opportunities to move laterally, or, do some different things. And if all that is, you're not getting that, well, maybe it is time to take a look and see if there's other opportunities out there. So I love that. I love this conversation because I think it's so important. And the work you do, I mean, for me, relocating families, I know they're stressed. I feel so, I get fulfillment when they have a good experience. And for you to be able to like help people with not just get help them get a job, but just to talk to they have
Right.
somebody to talk to about their career. I just think that is so cool, so fulfilling, and I just love that. Hey, I want to shift just a little bit here, and I want to ask you. We're talking leadership here, and I want to ask you about leading, Kristen, like
Hmm.
leading yourself every day. Do you have a daily practice that you apply in your life every day that helps keep you on track?
So I'll admit that I love having multiple things going on at one time. Even at home or at work, I love having lots of different projects or things at one time. And but if you're not going to be successful in accomplishing any of those things if you're not organized. So I'm a list maker. I make a list, and then I'll list out everything that I'm working on or that I need to accomplish, and then I prioritize on what's the most critical, the must to dos for that day. And in the last few years, I've actually learned to protect my calendar a little bit and block time for thinking space or block time for the unexpected. It's hard as a leader if you're in back to back meetings, and then in the evening is when you can actually get some work done, and that happens,
Yeah.
and we all navigate through that, but it's not a sustainable model.
No.
So for me, I take some time to just during a work week block some time so that I can be available for something unexpected or have some thinking time. So that's how I organize my day, and that allows me to juggle multiple things at one time. If I just make a list, stay organized, try to prioritize, and then protect my calendar a little bit.
Yeah, I think the pandemic really shined that light on the importance of scheduling because I talked to
Yes.
many leaders that were scheduling back to back to back to back, and next thing you know, the end of the day, they're just burnt out. And so
Hmm.
then I heard people talking about, well, we're going to move our meetings to 45 minutes instead of hour meetings to give us that 15. I thought that is a great idea to be able to do that. Somebody asked me what I was doing, and I start planning on Saturday for my week, but I have blocks of time in there as well that I protect
Hmm.
for. I always say connecting with people,
Hmm.
texting, and
Right.
eating.
Yeah, you gotta have a snack break for sure.
You got to eat. And then I think I learned this from John Maxwell a long time ago, and that was the importance of thinking time. And you
Hmm.
have to be able to think and put your ideas on paper. I love that. Hey, let me ask you this: do you use a electronic for all your calendars, or do you have a pad calendar or
Oh goodness. Well, I'm gonna have to admit I'm a fan of the notebook. I make a little note list down, and I have these cute little boxes beside it that I have to color in. So I do. And then sometimes if my list gets a little messy, I'll tear off the piece of paper and I'll create a new list. Yeah, I do.
I love that. I had Kim Neidl on the show and she showed me her markers and her book, and
Hmm.
she's old school. And you know what? You find your lane and you do what works for you. I
Yeah,
had
it works for me.
I had some business partners that were telling me you need to go electronic. So one year I said, I'm going all in, all electronic. And the next year I was buying my I was buying my planners because they just didn't work as well for me. I felt
Yeah,
lost. I'm a guy that needs to write things down. Hey,
yeah, me too.
let me ask this before we shift over to it's time to accelerate. And I always like to ask this question, Kristen, and that is, Have you ever been given some advice? It was just so good. You find yourself sharing that often with
Mhm.
others?
Um, Actually, I'm glad you asked that because there's two things that stand out to me that I practice every day. And I had a leader tell me, Kristen, get out of your head. Don't overthink this. Don't worry about everything being just perfectly so and ticked and tied. Um, you're that kind of energy will ultimately just hold you back and will limit your ability to be flexible and more nimble in these agile work environments. And so it was great advice because I internalize things, I process things in my head, I think about things a lot before I speak, before I take action on anything, and so forth. But if I pivot too far in that direction, I could get stuck. And so he got my attention. He just said, "You got to get out of your head." So that has always stuck with me, and I apply that every day. And then I had another great mentor who shared with me that I need to find my voice and not be afraid to, in my most authentic way, express a point of view and be heard. I tend to be a little bit more on the quiet side, and because I'm internalizing or processing things in my head, she encouraged me and to challenge that, to find my voice, and to make my thoughts heard, and so forth. And so that has stayed with me for a long time. That was some early advice that was given to me right when I first got into corporate recruiting, was to find your voice. And it's been really helpful, especially in some of the big organizations that I've worked for. I had to break out of my little quiet shell and speak up. And I think I practice it all the time.
Okay, I know it's time to accelerate for the last part of the show, but I have to continue this conversation here because there's probably some people listening right now
Mhm.
that want that. They want to share their voice. They want to be heard. What do you have, like a tip, or is there something you can share that helped you, I don't know, have that courage to share I don't know if it was courage, but to share your voice
Yeah.
with whoever it is, whether it's your team or whatever situation you're in? What is something the listeners can do to help them do that? Because it sounds
Yeah.
like to me, um, that's made you a better leader.
hmm I do. I took some time to reflect on that feedback, on that advice. And I invested the time to practice that almost every day. And in little moments, it could have been in a meeting, with a group of people. It could have been in a one-on-one setting with my leader, or with um, a hiring leader, or with my team. And so I think if that's something you're practicing, I think you have to work on what's what's a way that you can do it that's reflective of you, that's authentic to you. And then you got to put yourself out there a little bit. You have to show some vulnerability, you have to take the risk, and you have to speak up. And and really, there wasn't anything for me to be afraid of. I had good thinking and ideas, and sometimes the idea or the suggestion would have been something that was already tried, or um, and so forth, but it always landed really well. And I think that helped to build my confidence over time, is that i have I do have something important to say, and people want to listen. And so i just I just keep doing it every day.
That is fantastic. Just this one part of the podcast. There's so many people that are going to get a lot of that. I had my son on the show. He's a talent acquisition leader for Bank of America.
Oh,
And
wow.
he said the best advice he could give is to put yourself out there. And here
And put
you are
yourself.
sharing that as well. And I'm like,
Mhm.
I mean, we just have to, but I love how you frame that up. So for the listeners, you said, start in the little moments, right? Just speak
Mhm.
up, just speak up. I remember when I was a young leader in our organization, and when I first came in, I remember sitting around the boardroom, and there were, I don't know, there were 10 or 12 leaders in there. And I didn't speak up. I just wanted to hear what they all had to say. I was just like a sponge. I was just, and I had different people that would say, "Hey, you need, share your thoughts." And eventually I did. But now I'm sitting around the boardroom and I'm the old guy and I want to hear what the young people have to say.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
now I'm looking at going, gosh, I wish I would have spoke up more during that time. I think that would have been very helpful for
Yeah.
those leaders in the room. So you do have something important to say. And I think I had Rachel Kennedy on the show recently, and she said,
Mhm.
your words matter.
They do.
And
They do.
I just think that was
And
so
you'll
good.
you'll find balance. You'll find balance in those moments of listening and observing, and then expressing a point of view, or contributing to the dialogue and the conversation, and eventually you'll be doing it very naturally every day. It won't necessarily be work. It'll just become part of who you are and how you show up in business every day.
I love how you shared that, because Michael Phelps at the SHRM conference talked about, he was talking about mental health at the time, but he was talking about the more you talk about it, the easier it will get. And that's what you're
Hmm.
saying. The more you will, be vulnerable, the more you share, the easier it will get for you. I love that.
Right. Yeah.
So, so good. Oh my gosh. We are getting down to the end of the show, and we like to end the show on the part called "It's Time to Accelerate." And I like to ask you a few fun questions. And the first
Okay.
question I always like to ask is, would you rather read a book or listen to a podcast?
Well, it depends. If I'm exercising, or going for a walk, I tend to listen to podcasts or music, but podcasts. If I'm looking to just unwind or have some quiet moment, then a fun book in the evening, or sitting outside on the patio is what I would choose.
Love that. Love that both. That's a very popular answer right there, by the way.
Mhm.
Hey, I know that you used early in the conversation, you used the word gratitude. You were grateful. What are you grateful for?
So much. I'm grateful for health, a healthy family.
Yeah.
I'm grateful that I have lots of terrific friends in my corner, and I have a strong family. Um, I'm grateful, just for all these little moments in the career opportunity that I have. I'm grateful for time with my family. Yeah, I mean, my list is long,
I
very
love
long.
that. I love that. Oh my gosh. And I'm grateful to get the opportunity to spend time with you today. Hey, let me ask you this. When you're not in talent acquisition, what energizes you?
Well, I love cooking. So
Oh,
that would be my favorite time, is to, where I get to be creative and cook a nice meal. That's, a little outlet for me. Um, I get energy also from just having a little quiet time for myself, just to, maybe reflect or plan ahead. And anytime I can be outside and get some sunshine, fresh air, a walk, take a bike ride, play some golf, those are all things that put a smile on my face and bring energy back.
I love that. You're a golfer?
I do. I play golf. I try. I try.
That is fantastic. I love that. I'm the same way. I try to play golf. Hey, what
Mhm.
about I love that. What about those Dallas Cowboys? I hear you're a Dallas Cowboy
Dallas
fan as well.
Cowboys.
Does that energize you?
Yes, a win on a Sunday afternoon is the best way to end the weekend and start the work week. That is for sure. for sure. Love the Dallas Cowboys.
We're actually taping this podcast October the 4th. I think it's being played at the end of the month, but the Cowboys just came off of a win, so we got on here and we're energized to get started.
We are energized, 3-1.
It just makes Mondays better if you live in Dallas, Texas. I just love that. I'm so grateful that you've come on the show today. I have one last question that I want to ask you before we go here, and it's probably my favorite question, and that is, Kristen, 10 years older, is knocking at your door, and you're going to go answer that door. What is she going to tell you?
Well, she'll start by saying, yes, you should have worn more sunblock. She would definitely start with that. And then I think she would tell me that I'm going to be just fine, that, you got this. You're going to be just fine.
I love that. I mean, it's been heavy times, but you are definitely driving in the leadership lane. You're doing all the little things. I love the theme I got out of this was you're true to yourself. You're Kristen before the pandemic, you're Kristen during the pandemic, and you'll be Kristen after the pandemic. And I just love that. I've had such a great conversation today. I appreciate you coming on and sharing perspective. I know there's people out there listening that are going to have some great takeaways. If someone wanted to connect with you, learn more about Fossil or learn more about you, how would be the best way for them to connect?
Of course. No, thank you. I've really appreciated our conversation this morning. Happy to connect with anyone on LinkedIn. Or if you want to email me, you can email me at kcannon@fossil.com. That's my email address there. And I love meeting new people. And so anytime you want to reach out, that would be great for me.
I'll put all that in the show notes. I appreciate you coming on to the show today. I appreciate your partnership. And most importantly, I appreciate your friendship. So thank you so much, Kristen.
Thank you, Bruce. I appreciate you as well. This has been great.
I can't wait to share this. I'll talk to you later.